Yeah, so the article is called Making Dementia Matter Through Sound, and it's about the Stem&Luister project of the Genetic Choir. And I thought I have to start first with what is the genetic choir, because we are not at all interested in principle in dementia. You know, this has come about through a certain route, but the genetic choir is in principle what you can read here, the attempt to compose music from any imaginable sounds without a central composer or conductor. Which means we have this utopian idea that music could emerge just from the interaction of singers and the present listeners. And because of that, we also say like, okay, anything could become music. We are really interested in this question of, okay, what is music? When is something starting to be music? And any sounds could be the starting point for us of music. And that's the way we also enter in this Stem&Luister project. This is the way we enter the living wards of the care homes. We take it as a sonic environment, what we encounter when we go in, and we start composing, instant composing, from the situation at hand. And just because this is such a maybe this is a very strange combination, because I actually totally into contemporary music, you could say. You know, we are a contemporary music, experimental music ensemble, and we are going into the wards with people with dementia, which, you know, maybe is not the most likely combination, because a lot of work with music with people with dementia is around making music that, for example, they can recognize. So they can remember from their childhood or from their forming years, because that is, you know, what can be helpful, because these are the things they can still remember. And what we are doing, I mean, we do sometimes also use songs and to get into contact. But our main interest is to go into these care home environments to create new music and to create something that in the moment creates a feeling of, whoa, something is happening and I don't know, it's something new and I'm interested. So we want to get these people into this other state of being really interested in what is happening at the moment in the here and now. And just to give you another idea of how we think in principle about music, because I thought this is very nice, because this is the Phenomenology Club. Well, how can I go to the next slide? Here. So we really think like music. What is music? For us, music is in the listener's ear. And there's this quote from Sylvio Sen, and it says, music is not there to be talked about, it is there to be heard. Just like a painting is there to be seen. However, what seems like a triviality has non-trivial consequences. The purpose of music is to be heard. And that means the music has its original place in the listener's ear. Consequently, not in the game of the performer, the musician, as the circus of virtuosos likes to deceive us. This also applies to the origin of the music in the authorship of the composer. He is only a composer insofar as he himself is its first listener. And yeah, what I like about this quote is that it totally brings the authorship of the music to the listeners. So it's not about how much I think I'm making music. It's about how much what I'm doing is perceived as music. And I think this is one of the core things why our project works so well, is because we are going into a situation with the people with dementia to create, through our musical listening, a musical listening in the people that we encounter in the living wards. And so I think we are successful anytime that we make them listen in a musical way. And then they can still like it or not so much like it, but they started listening different from their day-to-day listening. And the day-to-day listening is what is the, yeah. I mean, we will see in a moment because I will show a little bit of film. If you have ever been in social care homes, the day-to-day environment is usually relatively, what can I say, relatively sleepy, there's not much happening there. And when there's something happening there, then it's a social interaction of, would you like another cup of tea? Can I help you doing this and this? It's practical oriented. And of course, there are activities, and these are, of course, the great moments when there are activities. But if you think of a 24-hour environment, most of the time, these people live in an environment where there's not much of a different listening happening, a different listening that makes them active in their ears and in their experience to something, yeah, that goes beyond, okay, I'm feeling uncomfortable, or I now want to eat something, or so we are really looking for this change in, yeah, in the experience. So I will come back to this later also. But this is really the background of how we create. And just to give that even more of a background, here you see a number of projects that the Genetic Choir is doing. Here to the right, this is the right above is the Stem&Luister project. But we also did something with religious music, with Islamic music and Christian music and contemporary music mixed together. We did in a sports environment, doing something with the basketball sounds. And I just want to show a little bit of video from our Central Station project, which was located in the train station, to just give you an idea of how we, usually approach music, or how we do that in other projects. And then we return to the subject of the dementia situation. So this is going to open now in a different browser. Let me just change the sharing. Share sound. Let me know in case you don't hear the sound, but I think it will work now.
De achtergrond hoor je altijd. Ja. Tudun, tudun, tudun.
Het concert begint als je deze deur verlaat. Ja, dus ik wil jullie eigenlijk vragen, als je naar beneden loopt met je gidsen, om even te luisteren naar alle geluiden om je heen.
So I will not show you the whole video. I will skip you a bit through. As you see, we get the audience listen to the sounds of the train station, and then later on we let them interact with the sounds they like, and we let them choose which sounds they're interested in this project. And they send in the end a certain mix of sounds to the concert that we will get afterwards here at the metro station and the metro station. And just to show you one thing that then appears out of that is here. this case, we have active listeners from the audience who can show us what they like about the music, and they steer us. I mean, they don't really conduct us, but they give us suggestions where the music should develop towards. Okay, I will not show you everything, but just to give you an impression of one of the projects we do outside of the social context of the dementia homes. So how do we bring these in the wards with the people with dementia? Oh my God, we the main thing, and this comes maybe to the article. I don't know if any of you have read it yet, but we actually describe 3 layers in which this work that we do works. And the first layer is research through listening. And this is really the first step. Also, when we go into a new house, we go in and we research the sonic environment that we find there. And this is really all the sounds. Like it matters a lot whether a place like a living room where the people are coming together during the day is next to a road, and therefore you hear a lot of cars going by. It matters a lot whether the care staff is also cooking, and sometimes they're cooking. I mean, in the first years that we were there, they were still cooking there. Unfortunately, that has stopped. But so there's a kitchen, an open kitchen in the living room. So people hear a lot of sounds from like kitchen sounds activity. And what one of the things we also do when we go into a new house, we give a workshop to the care staff to make them more aware of the sounds they are making and the sounds that are present. So usually there's little awareness of that. So usually it is very normal that we see when there is a shift change from one care team to the next care team, that just somewhere in the living room, they talk to each other, and they are not even aware that talking, that can be very, very, lively. It can be also, I mean, they're not aware of that there's someone sitting, for example, just a few meters away in their chair. And because that person is sitting there all day, because she's not moving a lot, the awareness that these people do listen all day to all the sounds that are, even 5 meters away or 6 meters away, that awareness is not so much there as far as we encounter. And so you really have to tell people, like, are you aware that all these sounds are making their audio experience? And so we also do like exercises in which we put them in the role of the people sitting in a chair in a living room, and close their eyes and just experience it for 5 minutes, and how much that is coming in, all the audio. I don't know. I would be very interested if there's any research being done if you are suffering from dementia, this is even stronger than with us without this dementia, because we are used to sort of shut ourselves off from the sounds that we are not interested in. So our brain also works like that. We can just sort of ignore the sound that is not important. But I'm wondering whether that is changing when you are suffering from dementia. I'm not sure. In any case, they are very different. I mean, they're in a different situation because they are more immobile. Usually, I mean, also different people are living, of course, on these wards, but usually they cannot move out themselves. They have to ask someone to push their wheelchair or to help them. So they're very stationary, and they just have to do it with the sounds around them all day. So this is one very important part of the project. And then how a normal session, a Stem&Luister session is going, is that we enter the living room and we go sit next to someone, or some of us, we are always with 5 people, 4 or 5 people. And then we can spread. So the whole idea is also that we are not announcing, okay, we're going to do a workshop. Who likes the little singing workshop? Because we don't want to create a boundary. So we just mingle. We sit next to someone. We maybe walk to the window and stand next to someone who's staring out of the window. And we make contact. If it's possible still to make verbal contact, we also make verbal contact. And if that's not possible, we make non-verbal contact, which could be just, spending time together looking out of the window. And then we might start copying a sound that is already there. So it could be just as simple as the ticking of a clock on the wall that is very present if you're silent and you're standing next to it. And we can copy that and we can start playing with that. And usually what happens is that you feel someone, their awareness is raised, their attention is raised, because all of a sudden, something that was like a daily sound is becoming something that is I don't know you could say it becomes music already. I don't know if you, what the terminology is you want to use for it, but at least there's a switch to a performative awareness or to a musical awareness. Something like, hey, something is happening. And this is the very beginning, of course, of also that imagination can happen, or that a story can develop, or that just because of the ticking clock becoming a rhythm, the body will react, and the body comes into motion or comes into a rhythmical. Where very often we don't have a reaction in sound, that they make sounds themselves, but usually there's a very clear body reaction of a hand ticking, or a knee starts moving. So these are usually the most common things that are still there, even if someone is more or less immobile and can't speak anymore. And then the next step is that I hear, while I'm doing, for example, this clock ticking rhythm next to the person that I'm standing next to, I hear that somewhere else in the room, someone started singing maybe a lullaby, because that's what came up in her because of the person she was sitting next to. And I can sync my rhythm to that lullaby. And because we are 5 singers in the room in different situations, and we have this ensemble awareness, we can start making connections with each other. And within a few minutes, the whole living room is experiencing a kind of concert. Because just there's, it's spreading, and all of a sudden, even people that we are not sitting next to, but that were just sitting in their chair very sleepily, they look up and think like, okay, what's happening here now? What's happening here? And so there is, again, this is the change of atmosphere to a musical listening, to a performative atmosphere. And it's not always possible to achieve that. I'm now sort of describing the ideal situation, because of course there are people who, who might be aggressive, because they I don't know, because they had a bad day, or or something else happened before we came in, or people are very talkative and just talk through it. So there are all sorts of reasons why this ideal situation is not as ideally happening, but it's the kind of thing we're working towards, and the kind of thing that happens regularly. And then if there are interruptions, we also deal with that in the situation as an ensemble. So it could be that, the person that I'm next to, first responded very nicely to my little rhythm, but now that there are more sounds coming as well, that is just being too much for that person. And then I realized that, and maybe she is becoming, unruhig, unrestful. What's the word? Restless. And I might say like, oh, I don't like these sounds either. Shall we go for a walk? Can go to the corridor, maybe. And then maybe I take this person to the corridor, and we have another one-on-one interaction there, while the rest of the ensemble is doing their thing in the living room. And even then, if somebody else, starts shouting, it could also be that the shouting, depending on what we feel the energy of that shouting is, could be included in the music. So we could also, shout, and it becomes music rather than a disruptive thing that is happening. But of course, if it's shouting and we feel someone is really, becoming uncomfortable with what is happening, again, we might sort of stop the whole thing, stop the whole music, and someone is going to take care of that person at that moment, or being helped by the carers who are there as well. So this is how we try to work inside the project. And I thought it's nice now, after all this talking, to give a little film example again, because there has just been made a documentary film for cinema about this project, and I can't show it to you totally, but I am allowed to show you a little bit.
Moppie moet naar thuis.
Ja, moet je meelopen. Ik moet mee.
Altijd mee. Poes gaat altijd mee met mij. Op pad, mee met mij. De poes gaat altijd mee met jou. Waar je dan ook gaat. Ga je mee naar het strand, de poes gaat altijd mee. Ga je mee in het buitenland, de poes gaat altijd mee. Mee, mee,
is echt
ga
waar,
je
hoor.
mee.
Dat gelooft niemand, dat is echt waar. Laat gewoon weglopen. Gaat er meelopen. Lopen meer gewoon mee.
Important is to know where you want to be as a singer, composer. I know I'm here on this musical line, and I hear that there are other musical lines around me. The biggest problem when things collapse is because we are too much trying to connect and make something out of it, but we're actually not feeling where we want to be. We don't know exactly our position in the music. So let's work on that and then compose together.
So I will stop him here. And exit full screen. Yeah. Yes, let me first open up again for questions up until here before I go further. Any questions? No? No, I don't hear. I mean, I don't see any hands, any talking. Okay. Okay, what else? So, yeah, one thing I wanted to also point out or give an example for is what I said in the beginning. Like, it's very strange that we do like this kind of, I mean, sometimes we encounter this with people. Very often there's a question like, yeah, but why don't you sing, you know, songs that people can can recognize? Songs from their childhood, songs they know. And of course, we also do that. But we really think there's a different thing happening if it's not just the remembering process. So so the other example would be that we just sing schlagers or things that they know, and usually when that happens, also, you know, people really join in, and we have a good time, and then, but when it stops also again, you know, and then you could stir it up again by saying like, oh, now let's do this one. Let's now do, you know, aber bitte mit Sahne. And then we have another nice situation of singing together, and then it stops again. And what we are interested in, what we really like, is that people become active. So they are not only entertained, and they're not only as long as the music is going on and there is the recognition of the music, there is the togetherness, and then, you know, okay, then it stops again. You know, then we don't know anymore what we have to do with each other. And therefore, when we, for example, take, you know, a Schlager or a Beatles song that appears, we try to directly turn it into new music as well. Or, you know, when the song is over that everybody recognizes, we just keep going and we improvise on it. and people immediately understand that. So it's very funny that it's very easy to make people join something like an improvised situation if they have something to hold on to, if they have a recognizable, that was the recognizable song, and now it just keeps going. Or if there's barking of a dog outside and we do the barking inside, and people recognize what we're doing, then they also directly enjoy the thing we're doing and understand it, and also start joining in a playful manner. Yeah, and we do this. We are really interested in this approach also because we realize there are many different cultural backgrounds in the dementia yards, wards, and so yeah, you can of course do a certain type of music, but you really don't know if you can, if that's for everybody nice music, if that is everybody is enjoying this. We have a lot of people who have not Dutch background at all who are in these living quarters together. And therefore, the first thing is to make contact through this listening and through that music appears without needing to go through the recognition. Through the recognition, someone knows this music, and therefore we can make some contact. And there's one nice example that is not in the article. We had once, there was a Chinese woman in one of the departments where we came often, and she couldn't speak at all. At least not recognizable for us. There were some Chinese volunteers who could speak a little bit with her, but she could not make many more sounds than and she was doing that more or less all the time. So also in first instance we were very sort of, is this is she having pain, or what is this? But the caregivers, they said like, no, this is just for her. This is a bit like breathing. It's the sound she makes. And so this was for a while quite some challenge to know. So how can we interact with her with this very, this kind of sound? And at some point, we were sitting at a table, and there were other ladies on the table chatting with each other, and it was actually a quite difficult session because there were some new people, and these were very well verbal, and therefore a lot of talking was happening, and we couldn't really come to music. There was, we started things, but then people said something about it, and it was again very chatty, and so we stayed in this verbal situation, which meant that some people could join very well. So there were 3-4 ladies who were joining very well, but the rest of the people in the living room were excluded from that more or less because they were not so verbal anymore. And I was sitting across this Chinese lady, and all of a sudden I heard in her sounds, I thought like, but this could be like Mongolian throat singing. And I started, in her rhythm, joining her and making slowly starting a kind of Mongolian throat singing as far as I'm able to. And the other ladies on the table, they recognized that what I was doing, because they recognized that there was some copying going on, and they recognized that this music was starting from this Chinese lady, and they enjoyed it. They enjoyed, although I don't think, these were Dutch Amsterdam ladies. If you would have told them do you like Mongolian throat singing? Of course they wouldn't have said, I don't know if they even would have recognized it. But they recognized the interaction that was going on with me and that lady. And then another singer from the Genetic Choir was recognizing what I was doing, and she was also starting to join. And we had a, beautiful, like 10 minutes of Mongolian throat singing in this living room. And even these chatty ladies, they stopped chatting and they were just sort of coming into this listening state and becoming very peaceful. And yeah, it was a beautiful, magical moment. And it's a nice, I think it's a nice example of how this kind of work, sort of what kind of things this kind of work is creating compared to like more conventional ways of making music with people with dementia, where you go through the recognizable song catalog. So this, any questions up till now before I come to the last section? Yes?
I think we have one question, Christine. Yeah, just go for it.
Yeah, hello. Thank you. Sorry that you can't see my video. I'm a new computer, so I don't know how it works right now. But first of all, thanks a lot for the great project and that I have the chance to listen to you. And my question is, there's always this conflict, I think, because of rituals, that we have really a structure and frame for people with dementia. And on the other hand, we have this freedom and improvisation. And I would really like to know if we probably suffer from stereotypes when we think about dealing with dementia, that structure and rituals are really so necessary, or is it probably more chance to have more freedom and improvisation? So the balance between that. Do you understand my question? I'm not sure. Yeah?
Yes, I think so. I'm not totally sure because I'm not so much into what are the things that I'm being talked about in terms of dementia people need rituals and structure. But what I know about is, of course, that there are people who say like if we don't, they need structures because they don't have anything to hold on to because of the way their brain fails to function. And they need recognizable things to have some sort of stability to know where they are and who they are still. Is that the thing that you're putting against the idea of improvisation?
A little bit like that. I wonder what's your frame in improvisation. So you start something, and what's the frame for that? Do you wait until the situation is finished, or what's the signal that it stops again? Is it a time limit? Is it a sound limit? Is it just open?
No, it's instant composition. So it means that we start. Actually, the moment we enter the living room, for us, the composition is starting.
Okay.
Even if for nobody else yet the sounds that are in that room at that moment are feeling as music, we listen to the sounds at that moment already as music. And
okay.
For us, that is the start of the composition. But of course, then there could be a new start that is also recognizable to others when we start singing.
Mm-hmm.
And the end appears from the logic of the composition that is at that moment building. And it might be that we just have a little 2-minute composition, and then that already dies because of something else is happening, and then we have a little pause, and then we start a new thing, and that way we go through the 45 minutes or the hour of being on this living room. And sometimes we start something and it lasts for 30 minutes and 35 minutes, and then it ends in a beautiful silence. So it's not. I mean, that's our expertise. Our expertise is to find the end and to know when there is an end, without having a structure beforehand.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Erik. You have a question as well.
Yeah, indeed. So I was wondering about your experience with the care facility. In particular, when it comes to comparing it to different institutions, I was seeing it looks quite nice. I don't know how you experienced this or how you had experienced this care facility sometimes, or at least I have memories of corridors with a lot of beeping noises. So someone pushed the button and like 3 or 4 individuals did the same over some phase of time, and because they were short on stuff, this beeping really created a noisescape or something like that. And this is one, maybe you can just describe your general impression a bit more clearly about the care environment. And I was wondering, but maybe we can discuss that after your talk, about the involvement of family members. So right now it was you, the inhabitants, and the care staff. And I guess everyone has some kind of different agenda, if you can put it like that. Even you as improvisation artists have some kind of framing, right? So you can't deny that, I guess. And I was wondering if family members sometimes joined, or if they criticized the program, or about your experience with that.
Well, your first question. I think we are now working in the Flavor House, where it's the first house where we started, and because of the years that we worked there, and also because they employ other artists as well, and they have, for example, also a sound artist who is making people aware of sounds. I think it's a very good care home in terms of how much they also recognize if there are, like these beeping noises. Of course, terrible if this is just happening and nobody is taking care of it. I don't, I think there are so many different care homes and so many different environments, so you can't generalize. I think the general thing we could say, and that is also what the team managers are saying, like in the the English word, in the training of care staff, if you are becoming a carer, there is still very little room made for this as something that you can train and something that you can have attention for. And of course, because of also, I don't know how it is in Germany, but there is a big problem about money, of course, and about how much, you can, how much staff you can have on one group, and the effectivity and the administration they have to do. So a lot of the training is geared towards hygiene, security, the things that are, can they do they have enough food and drinks, and do they have their medicine, and is it safe, because of the different things that can happen when you get dementia. So compared to that, there's pretty little room for what can happen if you just do your work, for example, with a different listening. And what can happen if you would be trained a little bit more to use your voice in a more playful way. So one thing that we also try to do is to train staff members who are interested in that in one-on-one trajectories, where we walk with them as singers while they do their normal work. And we look at situations of, for example, showering people, or day-to-day things that they have to do anyway. And one of the success stories of that was like there's one situation that one of our singers encountered when she was going on in this one-on-one trajectory of for example, a man who has to sort of be put from his bed onto into the wheelchair, and who was just very, very afraid. So he holds on very strongly with his arms, with his fingers onto the bed, and the carer can't take him over, because he's afraid. And he's very strong. So then, already like 2 other colleagues were asked in to sort of, some of them to open the fingers, while the other force tries to pull him over. And the singer who was there at some point just did something very simple. I mean, all the carers were trying it in a soft way and in a warm, loving way, of course, as well, to say like, there's nothing there's nothing to be afraid of, and please just let go of your hands. And so they were doing their best. But what the singer did was just singing it. So she was coming very close to his ear and was just singing like, let go, let go, let go. You know, something as simple as that. And the person let go. And he was just whoop, like that on the in the wheelchair. And I mean, it's a very simple example, but I love it so much because it's about if you think like, okay, we don't have much money and we have to work for effectiveness. In this case, you know, there was a situation where you had to bring two other carers into the situation in order to solve it. And they couldn't even solve it. But if one of them would just have sort of used their voice in a different way, you know, she could have done it on her own. You know, of course, it's an ideal example, but it's one of these things where I think it makes also money-wise a lot of sense to have more attention for this in the training of care staff. And your other question about the family, we from the beginning we wanted to involve family as well, and it appears to be quite difficult because most of the family who is involved in the care is already, you know, over their head, you know, in time stress because of the heaviness of the caring, or they just sort of have been in a long period that they were caring for their family member at home, and now they're in the care home, and you know, all of a sudden there's more space, but they are still sort of in a burnt out situation themselves. So we don't so much get into contact with them, but sometimes we do. And the nicest moments are when they are coming for a visit themselves. And by chance, we are there as well. And we can involve them in the situation. And of course, they find it, you know, most of them don't start sort of interacting with us in the singing, but they do recognize what we're doing immediately, and they enjoy, of course, seeing their loved ones so active, because usually in their interaction, which is usually like a verbal trying to interact, they might be not so reactive. But it's mainly, yeah, we try to, we could also like would like to go one-on-one with them and also train them or give them tools to interact with their loved ones more. But yeah, organizing that we didn't find the right route until now.
Yeah, I totally
Yes.
see that. Yeah, thank you.
Simon.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for your work. It's very nice. It's very beautiful. I wanted to ask you for your emotional experience. I had the impression in the short video you showed that the woman you sat next to when you were singing, there was the woman in the front of the video who was interacting immediately. She was like more playful or into it. And the other woman next to you was quite looking like lost or looking like very lonely in a way. And she started interacting in a way. She looked at you and then looked back to the front and all that. And I had the idea that there was something like a threshold where she was like, there was a very dense situation of, okay, is this happening now? Is there something coming from the background to the foreground, or is it not? Can you do you have the same experience that there is something like, I had an impression it was some kind of maybe even embarrassment, like, does he mean me? Am I there in a way, you know? Like something from the background becomes to something that happens, you know, like coming to the foreground. Do you have the same experience? And what kind of emotion would you feel there? Would it really be embarrassment, as I had the impression, or is it something else, maybe sometimes fear or something like that?
Well, sometimes there is for sure embarrassment, but in this particular case, I didn't read it at all as embarrassment from her. Like the situation was, you first see the, yeah, maybe it's nice to just scroll to it back so we know what we're talking about. wait a second. Because you first see here. Okay, share screen. Yes, okay. Here, because you first see these people in front, they are actually in contact with other singers next to them. So this is an example of how we are spread throughout the room. And I'm in the background with her. And this is what you're talking about, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it's a big difference. Like the woman in front, she's still very verbal. You see her later also talking about her cat, and the singer is making a song out of her story with her cat. And this woman that I'm sitting next to, she doesn't talk at all. Like I never heard her talking at any point that I encountered her. I've been also I know of I think for 3 years already. But she does really love our singing. So I just know that from her. And in this particular case, I was also wondering, okay, there's a lot of things happening. We first started copying these bird sounds from the outside. And I sat next to her and I thought like, okay, I'm gonna start singing now a song because I know she loves this. So I just improvise a melody. And for me, the thing that happens is that then there's a moment that she actually really loves, that I'm singing for her. She realizes I'm singing for her and she looks at me. So for me, that is not embarrassment. She's sort of a bit more zoned out as in her normal state. And then she looks at me because she recognizes something. I mean, she already nods. And this is like she usually does that. I mean, she really loves when someone sings for her. It's not only me, it's also if other people sing for her. Can really enjoy it, but in silence. I mean, that was my reading of the situation in that case.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's very interesting. And maybe for me, it changes now a lot, as you told that you knew her before. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if we think she's suffering from dementia, maybe she didn't know you before because she gets to know you each time anew.
Yeah. Same here. So now I frame her as cool. Next to you, she knows that she likes that, and more some kind of she's on the couch with you and looks cool for me now, or self-confident. Before I wasn't sure if it's still skepticism or as Simon said, not so sure where this goes. Yeah, but
it's one of the. Sorry.
I was just wanted to say, I must admit, I had the same struggle in that when I saw the video for the first time, but then I remembered, or I saw her nodding and the micro gesture we had with Joe Reichert's, for instance, and I realized that she was nodding and she was turning her head towards you. So I could interpret it as her feeling well or getting somehow into interaction or in tune with her. So my skepticism was already solved in that very moment. It's very difficult if you see her facial expression, and it's very difficult from the outside. But if you look into those micro gestures, as we have learned, you can tell that there's some kind of interaction and positive reaction.
Yeah, but
from somebody who doesn't know her, because we don't know her, but it's possible.
And in general, it can be very difficult to tell sometimes, even with people that we know, do you enjoy this now, or what is happening inside? Of course, this is really a big part of working with people with dementia, that sometimes you just can't tell, or you can just tell by, that someone sort of grabs your hand and gives it a bit of a tactile recognition of, hey, I like you to being here. While in the face, it could be she hates it or she likes it. I really don't know. And so this can sometimes be also difficult. So we train also our singers to recognize, if you feel there's stress happening in the body, of course, maybe back off a bit or stop, or but also the other side is don't get discouraged by not getting a reaction, because someone might really, really listen to you. There was one other example that we were singing. We were going into the ward, and one guy who was there already also for 2 or 3 years. We knew him. He was all of a sudden in bed. So he was in his room, and he seemed to be sleeping. And I went in with another singer, and yeah, we really didn't know whether he would react, whether he was aware of us there. We said hello, but he didn't react. But we decided to stay and do a little improvisation there. And because we knew he was a musician himself, he also just did a little jazzy, percussive improvisation thing. But, you know, like for 3, 4, 5 minutes, no reaction at all. And then we just sort of, we ended it, and still no reaction. And then yeah, we looked at each other and we said like, okay, let's go. And we said to him a bit loud, like, okay, until next time. Nice that you listened to us. And then he opened his eyes and he waved to us. So it sometimes you really can't tell, and still people enjoy.
But maybe then that's very important sometimes to ask them also, no? Did you enjoy that? Just to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but also and that if you in the beginning ask that and you don't get a reaction, don't get discouraged.
Yeah, get you.
Yeah. So maybe to conclude what I prepared, I want to talk a little bit about, in the last section of the paper, we talk about improvisation as design or technology. And this is something that might be for some people, a bit strange. How is improvisation like design or technology? But we really believe in that. So there's another, I don't know if you know him, there's a improviser and architects who is using improvisation also in the architectural world. He's called Christopher Dell, and we quote him in the article also because he coined this term of improvisation as technology. And the difference is, according to him, and I underwrite that, so there is improvisation that could be the improvisation of repair mode. So something goes wrong, therefore, we have to improvise. But there's also the situation where you consciously use improvisation because improvisation is the right frame to approach a situation. And it's so you strategically employ improvisation. And this is in fact what we are doing also in this project. So we really believe that it's the right approach because of several things that are happening in care homes with people with dementia. One thing that I already mentioned was that we don't want to create a boundary. Because if we would go in and ask everybody, would you like to join a singing activity? First of all, most of them wouldn't be able to say yes or no because they can't understand the question anymore or they can't express themselves anymore. So we would exclude everybody who would want to say yes and can't do that anymore. Also, if we ask that, we also would maybe get a few no's. We always have people being there in the beginning when we come in and saying like, what are you doing? You're strange, making strange sounds. But then later, after we sort of establish something, they are totally part of it and they're enjoying it and they're joining in. So it's also a question of, okay, do you know what you can say yes or no for? Do you know what we're asking? So our approach is really a strategic approach to say like, we're not going to ask that. We're going to, like a guerrilla movement, move into the situation and see and react sensitively in the situation. So if we feel there is, a no from someone or someone is not liking it, we take care of that in the situation. We maybe, as I said before, take the person to walk a little bit and go out of the situation if it's too much noise for them. Or we just stop altogether because we see there's something happening. You know, sometimes also an emotional thing can happen, and we just take care of that in the moment. And the other thing is that we really believe in this instant composition as a frame for co-creation, which means we're not just there to entertain, you know, again, like singing schlagers or singing nice songs, which is of course also a great, you know, receiving a cultural experience. But we believe that it's really, really good for the demented brain to also actively create new structures, understand reality in a new way, the present moment in a new way, to experience something new, rather than experiencing the daily, day-to-day cycle of 24-hour care. And one example that I like to give, because it's such a, you could say it's a negative example, but it isn't, I think. I'm just going to read it to you because it's in our ebook. That, by the way, you can download from our website if you want. It's a free ebook. Something that one of our singers, he noted it down. He writes, last week, I was happy to hear that Thomas managed to build a trust relationship with the Amsterdam ladies, Bea and Lily. And one of them even sang along. And a while ago, I sang a.r.t.e.s, that's a schlager from the Netherlands, from Ramses Shaffi for them, and it seemed to really break the ice. But today, we were literally sabotaged. The ladies were swearing and even threatening to throw us out of the window. Even though we had a nice conversation with them in the hallway before singing, once we started singing a little, the ladies told us to leave. We tried to keep it light and focused on the other ladies in the room, but when we had to laugh, for example, they immediately reacted. "Why are you laughing, asshole?" they said. Before we knew it, a certain chaos had got into the atmosphere. They even started to take other residents away with their wheelchairs, as if to protect them from us, from our singing. So this goes on a little bit more, but I just wanted to give this example because you could say, like, okay, clearly they don't like what we're doing, so this is an unsuccessful intervention by us. But together with Marjolein Gijsels, the anthropologist who is following the project, she also pointed out, like, yeah, this is actually, you could say this is a positive example as well, because you create a situation in which these people, these two ladies who don't like the singing and who try to protect others from us, they come into an agency. You know, they start caring for their fellow singers, their fellow residents, and taking care of them. And so again, we're creating an atmosphere that is different from the normal 24-hour care situation, in which they can't create, you know, they can't come into this agency, because they are kept in the daily care environment as people with dementia. So I really like that this story is as well in our book, because it shows sort of, it's not about that we're not looking for entertainment, we're not looking for only the beautiful experience. It can also be a difficult experience, and something that is sort of going against the grain of some people, because also that is creating more activity in the brain and more of experiencing yourself again as a human being, which is, you know, one of the things that is getting lost, of course, if you start suffering from dementia. Let's see.
Ragna, your mic is off.
Say it again.
No, I was trying to say something. I don't know if those were your final words, which would be, so at least for the presentation.
Yeah, it's we can stop here. This I don't think I missed anything
Great.
essential. Let's
Well,
let's open it up to the discussion.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you very much for this very insightful presentation, for the very many examples, actually. Many of us probably don't have, some of us have, but probably also from a different angle. If you come from the care side, if you work in a care home or a hospital, for instance, every day. So I think you make different experiences here. So your descriptions and examples were really insightful, and I think also helpful for us as theorists, and because it reminded me while listening to all your examples a lot on something like creative responsibility, which is framed and termed by Waldenfels, for instance, but also touching up on Jan Sonntag and his Dementia and Atmosphere book. I don't know if you know his work.
Know about it, yes.
Well, because you were asking if somebody was actually working on that supposed higher sensibility towards awareness towards atmosphere, and I think he's one of the proponents of this theory, saying that having those cognitive impairments, your sensory channels, and being maybe also due to this being forcefully exposed to a situation you cannot actively so easily withdraw, you're more exposed to an atmosphere. And get somewhat, whether that's a higher sensitivity or is just you're not able to free yourself from that situation. That's the debate, I think. But anyway, I would like to open the floor. I think we already started the discussion, which was kind of intermingling in between, which I liked a lot. If there are any questions, please raise your hand, either this way or the digital way. And there's one hand. Maybe I'll let Runa go first because Erik,
Hello, thank you so much for your talk. I also work with patients with dementia and also neurologic patients. So I can really relate to what you just mentioned, all of them. And because you're also interested in not only the dementia side, but also the musical side. So I was wondering, so what did you feel as a performer in this kind of situation that you created? Because you mentioned that the composition started as you enter into the room. So what did you feel? Compare with the like a traditional kind of performance situation.
Okay. Yes, well, of course it's a very special performance situation to perform in such in a care home environment. What did I feel? I mean, it's every time different. But I think it's a discussion inside our team also from the beginning. Like, are we there? Is it most important that we make contact, or is it most important that we make music? And I think, of course, we want to do both. So through the music, we make contact, or we create the ground for a different kind of contact than the daily verbal contact. And I'm always the one who says, like, I think if we keep thinking as performers, we are benefiting the situation the most. So if I'm too much thinking as a carer or as a person who thinks like, okay, this person just needs a listening ear now, and I'm gonna listen to the person talking, and this is good because this is what the person needs now. I will sort of then for that person be the listening ear, which is nice, but I will not transform the atmosphere of the whole room. And so I also will not transform that person's experience, because I guess when there are visitors, he or she has the same experience of telling her story, you know, and maybe telling it 3 times the same thing, but in staying in this verbal interaction. And I think through us really thinking as performers and going into the situation as performers, we bring a totally different dynamic into this day-to-day situation, and a dynamic that is benefiting from us also, you know, not being afraid of, you know, copying some crazy sounds that are happening, or not being afraid of all of a sudden falling silent altogether. And then because we are listening, everybody is listening, and it's not being filled with remarks like, you know, in an uncomfortable silence, people start filling it with verbal talk, but people can actually experience silence. I think that really happens because we see ourselves as performers and try to go into the situation as performers. But of course, it's different from a real concert, because in a real concert, you have more permission to do your thing, and the audience will just listen. And in that sense, the relationship is different. But I try to see it as much as possible as the same situation.
Mm-hmm. So can I ask
Is that answering?
another follow-up question?
Yes.
Yeah, so you're interested in the music side. What is music? Because you also cited like Blacking and the cognitive scientist. What's the name? I just forgot. So my question is, so what how would you like define music in this kind of situation? Because you criticize the traditional view of music as composition. And so what is the most important thing in this kind of situation that you have created together with the individuals with dementia and maybe also their caregivers?
I don't quite understand the question. So how would I describe how would I define music? Is that your question?
Yes, because at the beginning of your talk, you mentioned that you're interested not really the dementia side, but the music side. So what is music? This is your Ausgangsfrage, right?
Yeah, well, the raison d'être van the Genetic Choir, so the reason why we exist, you could say, is because we want to solve the riddle of how music can be created without a central composer or conductor. So from a self-organizing swarm of singers, you could say, we use this image of swarm intelligence also a lot. How then, yeah, you could say quality is recreated, because we want to go beyond just random sounds. We want to hear that it's music, but we also don't want to define what music is. So yeah, I mean, I could go endlessly into it, because this is really sort of our interest as a genetic choir. But very practical for the Stem&Luister project. Really, the core term that we also now defined for ourselves is that it is about musical listening. So musical listening is our approach as the people who go into the living rooms. We bring a certain kind of listening. And even if no music will appear, you know, even if we wouldn't make any sounds for half an hour, there would, through our attention, a different kind of listening would spread. I mean, that's our experience. People start listening in a different way because other human beings in the room start listening to the sounds in a musical way. And for me, from that moment on, music is happening, because the listeners are experiencing the sounds as music. And then it doesn't matter whether, you know, inside that half an hour, there's also yesterday happening, and there's also other songs happening, and there are strange, crazy sounds from the refrigerator and from the cars outside joining the composition. I don't mind. It's not about that. It's not about what the form of that appears is, as long as there's musical listening in the listeners who are in the room.
Yeah, I think we have a couple more minutes left. Erik, you got one question.
Yeah, thank you very much, first of all. I really enjoyed your talk, and I really enjoyed the paper. At least I didn't finish it until before your presentation, but I really enjoyed it, and for me, it really gave the chance to get closer to your work, which I find quite impressive. And with the example you brought here this time, beautiful too. So playing, opening up, being aware of the environment is something I really like, but which is not the case most of the times in care facilities, but in a lot of areas we are over the day. So with kids, it's a bit different. You can have that, but even them are sometimes already in their modes. And so I wanted to say thank you. And what me impressed particularly while reading the paper was the level of reflection. So it's completely aware to the reader that you are a trained ensemble and have some kind of mixture of professional reflection and so on. And I was wondering, did you ever discuss this notion of positioning in your meetings? Because there is a communicative theory which is called positioning theory, and it's mainly applied to verbal language, but I think the spirit of it is not really limited to spoken language. It looks at how communication works and how communication frames and positions us. And the goal of positioning theory is to have co-positioning. So you not do it like I say who you are, and you have to deal in that way. But we co-create how we position ourselves, and in dementia, it's targeted at improving the way social relations are designed. And I was wondering if you ever discussed this notion of positioning with your colleagues, with Marjolaine, for example, or maybe we can have a chat on that, because I'm really interested in
Yeah,
that.
it sounds very interesting. I was not aware that this is like a theory in language theory, you're saying.
Yes, and
Yeah.
dementia research too. So
Yeah. Well, but it's funny because I talk a lot about positioning
yeah,
from the music. So that also what you hear in the film, that it's about like how you position yourself in the music
yes,
is really important when you want to create music as an improviser. So it's also compared to sort of the people might think like improvisation is just total freedom. Actually, improvisation is very much about where to position yourself. So it's as much about the structure that you feel you're in and how you move in that structure that it appears in the moment. I mean, it's much more about that than about freedom, you could say. So positioning is a really important thing to grasp and to train, and it's one of the things that we try to bring across to the volunteers also that are doing this work now more and more for us in the care homes.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I would like to talk more about it.
I will just write on that after today's session. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you everybody for listening. My pleasure to share this with you.
Yeah, thanks again from my side. I think what I would like to say in the end is I like the fact that you touched upon this creative aspect on musician. So I feel more inclined to, as I'm more a listener and a producer of music, but that is an invitation of me co-creating somehow that music also in interaction. And actually it's it is a bit an invitation to improvise and let your imagination play a little bit freely. I really appreciated that. So, and it would be great to meet maybe in a separate meeting or something. Then we could exchange on some more concepts, as I mentioned, the ethnographic epoche, because I think that's something you're touching on in your project as well. How to dissolve these moments of irritation and frustration, because they're on both sides, which I learned today. I think that is something we could take home as well for our research, but also for our practices in dementia care homes, for instance. Yeah.
Great.
Well, then it's up on me to invite you to our next session. I don't exactly, do you know when it will be, Erik? I think in like 2 weeks' time, right?
Yes.
Yeah, more or less.
Check it. Give me a second.
Yeah, maybe that. And for the rest of the day, yeah, enjoy wherever you are. Hopefully it's not too cold as it is here. And then, yeah, great to see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Yes.
Thanks from my side.
Thank you,
Tom.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.